All right, Recruiter Nation, coming at you live today. We got Donnie on the line talking to you about everything marketing. He's got deep expertise in this area, lead generation, client generation, growing, scaling your recruiting, everything from a marketing perspective. This guy has all the information. So tune in, a lot of value here. Donnie, if you could, I'd love for you just to start with kind of how you got started in this space and a little bit about what your journey has been, just so that the people watching, have a frame and a context.
Yeah. So thank you, Kate and Todd, for having me on today. My journey, I think, is a lot similar to, a lot of people that are in the industry. I stumbled into the staffing and recruiting industry. My expertise and experience in this industry has always been around marketing and business development. And actually, it was about 4 or 5 years ago, I started helping a friend locally here in the Bay Area. He had a staffing firm where all they focused on was engineers. And so I coincidentally at that time was kind of starting my coaching and consulting business, didn't really know what angle I was going to go into, and started to do some work with him. We saw some results, but that really exposed me to this whole staffing and recruiting industry. Mm-hmm. And so as I started to look at the industry independently and outside of what we were doing together, I really saw a lot of opportunity. And I saw that there were a lot of companies that were still kind of working out of the old playbook or the Stone Ages, where everything was, based on cold calling and face-to-face. And I'm not saying those things don't work, but I just knew that there was a better way and a better opportunity. So I really just kind of committed and planted my flag in this industry, and through time and trial and error of helping people out, we've come up with what we call the relevant recruiter method. So
let's talk about that. Yeah, I'd love to dive deeper into the relevant recruiter method. What can you, because it sounds like a lot of work went into it and came out of it. So share with us, Donnie, what is that method?
So the method overall is, going to incorporate, 4 pieces to it. And the whole idea with it is to, help somebody build an online presence that ultimately attracts their ideal clients first and foremost, in candidates and in situations where it makes sense. So we really work on 4 phases. The first phase of becoming a relevant recruiter is standing out, separating yourself from the competition, right? And we know in this industry, if you don't have a way to differentiate, the hiring decision makers and even candidates just view you as another recruiter. And if we're being honest, the industry doesn't have the greatest reputation all the time.
No, they don't love us.
Yeah. So,
Donnie, are you telling me there's more than one recruiter out there?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So the idea is really to, build an online digital presence where you can stand out and differentiate. And ultimately what we try to do is position people as being the authority in the marketplace, becoming a go-to, recruiter or staffing agency. However, we're really trying to build a brand, whether it's for an individual or for a company. Once we do that, then what we really do is we start to look at ways that we can help generate lead flow. And the first way that we found is through LinkedIn. And there's a ton of opportunity on LinkedIn. I'm sure you guys are seeing it. Everybody's got an opinion about LinkedIn now, but we've come up with a really good approach. We call it the LinkedIn lead machine. And knowing that there's so many people going towards the LinkedIn platform right now and using a lot of, spammy and automated type of approaches, what we do is we've kind of found a conversational way and really build these things based off of long-term relationships. Right. Going with the kind of the basic principles of business development for years and years and years of, it's all about, building relationships. And so our approach actually in LinkedIn is not to sell to anybody on there, but it's actually to build relationships first and foremost. And then from there, we really leverage the platform. And the next part of the relevant recruiter method is what we call the content conversion system. And that's basically starting to create relevant content for your ideal clients and become a resource, become a thought leader, and solve their pains and problems, and really start to, become a top of mind choice, for the marketplace. And the content really helps with a lot of things. The content in this situation, really, first and foremost, that's what's really going to establish you as being the authority, right? You showing up consistently to the marketplace and adding value to the market. But the second thing is, because the industry has always been so transactionally based and most of the calls are about hiring, what this allows us to do as a recruiting and staffing agency is continue to have dialogue with our market, but not always being peppering with an ask, by adding value and really building more, of a relationship and a connection with my audience. And then the last element of the relevant recruiter method is really what we call multi-channel scaling. So this is where we start to really dominate the market, go outside of LinkedIn and traditional email. We start looking at more high level content and creating lead magnets and landing pages, and going on to Facebook and considering paying for advertisement on Facebook ads and Instagram and YouTube and podcasts. And that's where it really becomes fun, where we're, really helping somebody take over a brand. But the whole idea, and I use this term because, I played football and love football, is we swarm the market. In football, when you play defense, you're always swarming the football. And the whole principle with our multi-channel scaling is to swarm the market so we can show up everywhere to our audience. And, one of the things that's, funny about this industry is, or when people think about marketing is, it doesn't matter if you're a recruiter or staffing agency or executive search firm. If you have a great marketing message, nobody's ever going to go, wow, did you see Kate's marketing message? We need to start hiring right now. It's really about top of mind in being there when their need arises, right? And so that's kind of the idea, and everything kind of covers that, from building relationships, leveraging automation, to be more efficient and things like that. So that's kind of the overview of the relevant recruiter method.
Yeah, let me ask you, just because I'm really curious here. How much do you buy into the automation on LinkedIn? I know there are apps that'll do it on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm very much of mind that I want an actual human doing the messaging. There's a lot of tone and there's a lot of cadence. I'm sure you've gone through tons of trial and error,
Oh, yeah.
with the engineering firm, when we first started doing it in that. So I'm curious kind of where you land on that. I have some people that, they swear by, just having the bot do it. And they look at me like I'm ancient, because I'm like, no, I really do want the one-on-one. So where have you done a blend of those two, or kind of where do you see that going?
Yeah. And I think it's a blend. 5 years ago, when I first started doing these things, you could come up with the tackiest message. Nobody else was showing up on LinkedIn anyways, and you'd be able to have success. So what happened through time is everybody's kind of regurgitated the strategy, and that strategy is what I refer to as the connect and pitch, right? You guys have seen it. Somebody connects with you, 4 hours later, you're getting their message and their sales pitch to get on the phone. So everything we do is to go away from that. So there's parts of it that we will incorporate automation, but everything is designed to really start conversation. And so, it's definitely a hybrid type of a thing. It's not about constantly spamming and constantly asking. And that's where the shift comes into play. And automation is one of those words, when we start to think about it, the first thing that usually comes to mind is like, oh, spam, right? Or this is my experience with automation, I don't like it. Automation, if you kind of shift your thinking, is like, it's really just a driver to deliver a message, right? Really what matters most is getting a good hook and getting a good message. And if you have that, then it doesn't matter if you send it manually or if you send it through automation. It's about getting that hook to get somebody to respond is where we found more important. So I think there's definitely a balance, because everybody sees it, right? But on the flip side is it works so well that, you can't beat them, join them type of a thing. So, I think you definitely don't want to just go out there and run rampant and trying to sell through if you're trying to sell through your messaging and through your messages, you're going to fall on deaf ears. I mean, that time was 5 years ago.
It's funny. It's funny, Donnie. I've been doing recruiting for a while, and just listening to you, I already know I'm making mistakes. Like, I already just start pitching from the connection, and just listening to you, it's like, I hadn't thought about how do I just get a conversation going. I mean, for me, I've always, said, okay, what's my differentiator? And like, let me just, kind of just spray and pray on that.
Right.
I just listening to you, I realized that even though I've been doing this successfully for 5 years, that I'm probably leaving so many clients and money on the table.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an evolution, right? I mean, it's part of the process of course, being direct and asking works, and there's a time and a place for it.
Yeah, some people love that, and other people don't. And so, I mean, what I'm really hearing from you is connect, add value. How can you hook them and like lead with that? So as I'm listening to you, I'm wondering, like, can you give us an example of where you would take your messaging, or what you would advise your clients to really kind of focus on to help create that connection?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really kind of comes down to, and kind of going back to what you were saying, Todd, is like, you can kind of take your USP and get a little bit of creative it. So it's like, hey, I'm just going to thank you for connecting with me. Something based on, hey, hopefully you find some value in my network. Hey, now that we're connected, you'll probably see my posts around online marketing and lead generation, specifically for the staffing and recruiting industry. Looking forward to seeing your posts too.
So good. Connection, no
I'm
ask.
basically, by doing that, I'm basically going, hey, I don't need to tell you that I'm a coach. I'm just telling you, look for my content to start to build this awareness around what I do. I don't care if you respond to that or not. Subconscious marketing, right? So they see that message, most people are thanks. There's never a negative response to somebody like that. Why? Because what are they used to?
Pitch.
Right. So when somebody sees that, whether it's automated or not, it's refreshing, right? The other things that we'll do is like, we'll take some articles that we've maybe written, or we'll take, a podcast, or I've promoted my Facebook group, my podcast, lead magnets that I've created and things like that. So I am always working on creating content, creating value, and have a bunch of resources. And that allows me to start conversations that are not about, hey, do you want to do business with me? Do you want to get on the phone? Do you want to do this? I let my marketing funnels do that. And I'm just trying to get people into my funnels all the time through various messages that are all around them and the value of them. That's kind of the key marketing. I think overall philosophy is, when we make our marketing about our prospects, whether it's a client or a candidate, the results are better. And a lot of people think of marketing, the first thing they think is promoting. Why do business with me? Yeah, that needs to be a part of it, but that's at the end of the day, that's the last thing you want to deliver to the market. You want to warm them up by creating content, creating value, get them to kind of buy into your expertise and your authority. And then by the time they get on the phone with you, they're ready to give you a search, right? So that's a little bit of a different thing. Is it's not a high volume, let's pound the phones, let's try to get a mini contracts. It's really to get an ideal client, somebody that goes, hey man, Todd, I've been watching your stuff for a while. I really resonate with what you do. I believe in what you do. I've seen your success. I've seen your results. Hey, let's talk. And by the time you get a much more qualified person. So one of the things that people kind of confuse with online marketing is like, the game is still won through the relationship. The game is still won through being on the phone and face-to-face if you can. What we're trying to do is make that easier, right? Easier to get phone conversations, and a better phone conversation. When you think about the industry and how it's really kind of come up, is most people have been through some sort of tactical cold calling training, right? Obviously been a successful approach for years and years and years, but when you try to take that approach and bring it online, it doesn't work as well. So that's why everything we do is more of a value-based, thing, and trying to get on the phone. If you haven't really been on the phone with somebody that wants to be there versus like, hey, hey, it's me calling for another job order, it's a completely different dialogue. So
it's a yes. Getting a yes before you even get on the phone. What were you about to say, Todd?
It's really interesting to me, like how cold call heavy recruiting is. And, I don't know about you guys, but like, I've never gotten a cold call and been like, yes, I'm super excited that you just cold called me. So,
exactly.
What I see happening is more and more people adopting your style and approach, Donnie, which is like investing on the resources on the front end, like invest in, creating the content pieces, invest the time, continually showing up in front of that person. And then that builds the credibility and the trust. And then it's a way nicer phone call. Like your day
100%.
is it flows so much better,
100%. Yeah. And, you kind of bring up a couple of things, it's funny you say, like, I don't know if I've ever liked receiving a cold call, but think about like, and then you tie that back into your other statement about automation, right? It's like, we're so programmed that like, okay, cold calling's been so accepted that I'll cold call all day long. I don't care if you are pissed off when I cold call, but hey, I'm not going to automate, right? So it's like realizing
good contrast,
that, like, hey,
Donnie.
Yeah, it's like there's a balance for both, because that's what we're trying to get. That's what we're trying to get done, is create more connection. When you think about it, depending on how the model's set up, but if you were going to talk about your typical independent recruiter or small boutique, what's the number one challenge, right? Well, I hustle. I finally got that search. I finally got those job orders. Now what do? I go and take all my energy and I'm going to go fill those roles. What's happening in the meantime? My pipeline for new to business development is dry, because everything I've ever been taught is manual, right? So what we're really trying to do is get people to understand that we can go from one to one to many, and then use some automation, so that while you're working, doing the things that are, making you the money, talking to the candidates, talking to the clients, developing and actually, fostering the relationship, we have machines in place that are starting new opportunities for you, keeping you top of mind in the market, so that, you know, as you're growing your business, it's not all 100% reliant upon your effort. Because let's face it, as motivated and as fired up as we are, you know, I've got great energy every day. I work my morning routines, but hey, there's certain days where we're humans. We just don't want to do shit.
Yeah.
I want to go to the beach or something, you know, like I'm like, time out, enjoy life too.
The cool thing about when you have different types of automation in place is that, you know, it doesn't claim. It just goes to work every single day. It doesn't have those bad days, right? It's just a good little thing. So as you have different systems set up, you know, the other thing that comes from it is freedom, because then I can go out of town with my family and my business can still be working while I'm not there. And so that's kind of the big overall arching concept that a lot of people are still trying to wrap their mind around in this industry. And it takes time to make that something like that work. It doesn't just like, okay, cool, I'm going to go ahead and start going to online marketing. Let's turn on the switch. It's a process. And a lot of people are afraid to jump into that because there's that perceived value, or that perceived, when I'm cold calling, I feel productive. Whether I'm winning or not, there's a sense of productivity because I'm taking an action. When you're doing online marketing, you can take the action in the morning. I can post my content and I don't have to do anything else for the rest of the day, try to nurture and drive more traffic to that content, but the content's working for me as I'm doing that. So the answer overall is like, hey, do both. If you're in doubt, you know, do both. Yeah. But when you can have that stuff working for you all day long, a lot of what's happening is there's a lot of stuff happening under the surface you don't even know about. Your market's seeing you, but you're not getting the gratification because you're not talking to somebody, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, somebody pops in your inbox like, here we go. So, you know, it's definitely more of a lag result than what people are typically.
It's a long term, just like, so the bottom line with recruiting, like, things are long-term. When you're looking for like clients, you want long-term clients. They'll give you referrals. And so you've got to think long-term. You can't just think short-term, got to get this. It's like, how do you set yourself up so that your business can grow and so that you can actually enjoy your life? One of the things I'd love to take like just a little bit deeper look at is content. Like you really seem to like really emphasize the importance of creating value so that when you're targeting messaging, you're like, great to connect. I hope you find value in what I'm posting. So if you're a new recruiter or you're a recruiter looking to really go out on your own, you're ready for that. What are some, like, how can they start to get some ideas for content, or like, where would you direct them or guide them? Because that's obviously crucial.
Well, I mean, it all actually starts going back into the first phase of the relevant recruiter method of who's my target market? Who am I trying to stand out to? So the first thing is I want to know exactly who I'm creating my content for. And this is another challenge, right? And the challenge is just to explain is like when you think about recruiting in general, like most recruiters can probably fill majority of positions thrown their way, right? And so what happens is we kind of get in this bad habit of becoming a generalist. And again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't take the work that comes your way, but when you try to take a generalist approach online, you try to create a message for everybody, it hits home with nobody.
Broad is broke. Broad is broke.
So everything we do is about laser focus. It's about the ideal client. It's about being different than, hey, the Fortune 500 or the Fortune 100 IT departments or the small to medium sized IT departments. And so the first kind of place that we go with content, once we know exactly who we're trying to create the content for, what we try to do from there is go, okay, well, what are their pains and their problems? What are they struggling with when it comes to recruiting? And so going back to my previous point, if you were going to look at that, hey, the small to medium sized company that's trying to find that IT role that doesn't have an internal recruiting team, but a small HR team, they've got a different set of challenges for finding people than that Fortune 500 that has a whole HR recruiting, right? So in order to speak to an ideal client, pains and problems, right? Again, it doesn't say that I won't work with both, but I'm baiting my hook for both, right? So it's always about the pains and problems is where we start. From there, another good piece of content to start is like, what's your story? What was your journey to getting into this industry, right? So more than like, hey, why working with me? People are going to attach nowadays. They want connection. And so if you can tell a good solid story of why I came here, why I'm working here, then that's going to help as well. And then having stuff around your process. I think now more than why, it's more people buying into a methodology or process and understanding that we do something a little bit different. Now, this is always a challenge, right? Because if I talk to thousands of recruiters and it's like, well, we all do kind of the same thing. Yes and no. I mean, there's a certain path to get there, but look, the best recruiters aren't the ones that are going to get all the business now. It's the ones that can market the best and convey the pains and problems, convey a process. And then the last thing I think is out there is, and this might be a little bit challenging if you're starting a recruitment business, but it should be the number one priority is get testimonials, whether they're video testimonials or written or LinkedIn recommendations. But once you get them, don't just shove them on a website somewhere. Promote them. Get your success in the feed. If you're not going to do it, nobody else is, right? And if you do it right, what happens is you actually build a connection with your audiences. They're starting to see like, wow, hey, this person really knows that I'm an IT expert recruiter. Wow, I really like their story and why they got into this industry. Man, I really believe in what their process and their methodology is. And shoot, look, it's proven. They have testimonials to prove it. So that's kind of the magical formula that we usually work around and help people get into that habit. But the biggest thing is the habit. You know, people create content for a couple months. It didn't work, didn't get the result. I'm done, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is like people kind of disrespect the process of like, it's your ego getting in the way of like, oh, well, I'm going to show up, I'm going to create content. People should just start engaging with me. It's like, no, quite honestly, it's taken me like 3 years to build a slight reputation in this industry, but I've been relentless for 3 years to build that small little, part of my market.
Yeah, you remind me of consistency. Keep showing up and know that like, don't be so tuned into the present and looking around and seeing like all the things that aren't working. Trust that like there's stuff happening below the surface that you've got no idea about. There are people liking your posts, reading your posts. You're building things without necessarily thinking like, oh, immediate result, which is such a great reminder for all of us.
Yeah, well, I think the long game is really where it's at. And if you're going to do content marketing, you have to be bought in. Now, I've had clients that come in, create one video, and that one video generates clients right away. So it's not to say that you can't pick up the quick wins, but I'd say in the most case for the consistency of what you're trying to do for your business is just to be showing up. And one of the big things that I work on with my clients is progress, not perfection. And the reason why most people don't create content is because they're not willing to suck first. They're just looking for it. All of a sudden, they think they're going to just become good on video.
No, get ready for some real rocky moments.
Exactly. And just embrace that process because, and the cool thing about it is if you're being raw, that's what people like now. So you can actually win more by just saying, hey, I'm just getting started on this whole content journey. And you'll find like a bunch of people just rallying around you because that's the society that we live in now, especially on social media. But one thing you brought up around likes and comments and things is probably the most overrated thing that's out there. Now, don't take this out of context. Of course, likes and comments are great for engagement. They're great for algorithms. They're great for driving more traffic and things like that. But the problem with it is I know tons of people that get great likes and comments, but can't get anybody to book on their calendar, right? The likes and comments are really good for the dopamine rush that our brain needs to, feed our ego. But I always bring this up to my clients as they get into my program. I said, how many of you guys ever liked and interacted with my stuff? And like, everybody's like, like, I don't know if I ever have. And I can tell, I know based off of just kind of some subtle watching that most of them haven't. Most of them aren't engaged necessarily all the time with my stuff. Right. And I get good engagement on my stuff. Right. But that's like the most your clients 9 times out of 10 aren't going to be the ones that are always commenting and liking your stuff. Not saying it never happens. Of course it does. Of course it's gonna be both, but you got to be careful of what you're really measuring is good, right?
It's funny you bring that up. I was in a business mastermind and we talked about lurkers, and they were the people who never really engaged with your content, but have been following you and are really potential clients. And it's like, you just don't quite know. So what I'm really reminded of right now, Donnie, is don't look at the external to judge and calibrate your results, because that's not progress. That's really limiting yourself. So it's like, you've got to trust and know. I mean, you've been at creating content for 3 years. That is a long build. I mean, like maybe you have for all of us, maybe we have that one video that's like a miracle, but like, it's really about consistency. And I mean, for me, I always think when we talk consistency, I'm such a little like, get that in the calendar. I'm like, okay, so Fridays at 2 are your content creation. And then I start to think systems, like how can you make sure you consistently show up?
100%. And I mean, I think that I call it the content habit, and I think you bring up a great point is because content for most is this new thing, right? So anything new, we have the tendency to go, and especially in this industry, if we're trying to kind of break some old habits or come up with some new systems, we're going to always default into, well, I need to make my calls this morning, or I need to make sure I do this, that, or the other. And that's the first thing I try to tell my clients, like, get this on the calendar. And in fact, knock it out in the morning, not from me and my ego, but from creative energy. The best time to create is in the morning.
So true.
And this is the easiest thing to go, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't have any energy. I'll do that tomorrow. Next thing you know, tomorrow's next week. Next thing you know, next week's next month, and you don't have it. So, I always recommend, like, find out what your groove is. For some people, it's like, hey, batch out Fridays from 8 to 12, and all you do is create content, and then you distribute that the whole next week. Or it's an hour, 30 minutes every morning. It's just a daily habit. However you work. I think the more consistently you're doing it, you're going to get into a better groove. But some people really love the whole time blocking and batching out a bunch of content. But
yeah, that's so me. I'm that person.
Yep.
And it is like what you're really speaking into there, Donnie, is figure out how you work and operate and don't move it. Like, maintain a commitment and follow through.
Yep. And for me, I have different seasons, right? Like, there's times I try to create content every day, just from if you're really trying to commit to that, you got to be sharpening your tool. And if you're not working on your tool every day, then you need, you're not sharpening anything, right? Or that skill. So, but there's times where, like, when I'm doing video, because I've got my stuff set up and and then sometimes you get into that groove when you're doing video. It's like, yeah, boom, 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 I'll knock a couple of them out, right? But yeah, I think the biggest thing is you got to just do what works for you. There is no right path for everybody.
Mm.
Yeah, I wanna hop in here on a few things and point things out to our audience and make sure that it's landed. So I love the idea of telling your story. I think that's such a powerful thing. And I'll be honest, I don't see any recruiter that really does it. Like where's the video? Where's the blog post? Where's the article? Like, on multiple fronts, just really sharing that. So I want to invite anyone that's listening to this to take that and check that as a to do. The other thing I heard you share, Donnie, was about testimonials.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I mean, of course, mine are just buried on my website. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Of course. So where did you come up with that idea? Or like, what are the results that you've seen by people, doing that? And what's kind of the system you just look at, okay, let's get them on your site, but make sure that everyone that we get on, that we share it on LinkedIn, that we share it on kind of, just tell me a little bit more, because I haven't heard about that. And it's smart, and I'm completely, I'm the exact person who's done that. They're buried bottom of the thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, nobody even cares,
Yeah. So, I mean, it's being through marketing, I'd love to take the credit for it. I didn't come up with this. I've always just, when I started back with my dad's company, years and years and years ago, we were in the flooring industry, and Yelp was the big thing. So Yelp here in the Bay Area is where Yelp got started. So I hated Yelp when it came out. I mean, I absolutely hated it. I thought it was the stupidest thing in the entire world. But then I realized, hey, I got to embrace this. And we really started to build our company brand around quality and reputation. And next thing you know, we had over 100 5-star reviews on Yelp, and our company was just, killing it, because we were in a service industry, flooring, that's kind of a little bit rough around the edges, but we made it a little bit more polished, and it really helped our business. So, doing that, and then going through like a lot of marketing and training courses that I go through, because I'm a coach, and I would be not practicing what I'm preaching if I'm not always working with a coach and trying to polish my own skills too. So, just learning different things, in different programs around, video testimonials and things like that. And so video testimonials is kind of the golden one, if we can get that, right? If we can get the video testimonial, then we are solid, because now you have somebody else kind of telling your story. There's a better chance. It's really just about how you're going to frame that, that kind of testimonial, right? So at the very least, it's like taking a screenshot from your phone of it, or it's taking the, just depends on how you want to do it. You can take a screenshot anyways, right? Or you can actually take the person in quote, and then you can tag the person on LinkedIn. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. But ultimately, what you're going to want to pay attention to is staying away from it being braggy. I know that's always been my biggest challenge, right? Is because, and especially when we're doing this as an individual, we have to go and share our success with our audience. A little bit uncomfortable, I'll be honest, every single time I do it. But what I found to be really
uncomfortable, and it's so important to handle and navigate and get out of your own way is what I just got reminded of.
Yep. Get out of your own way, basically. And what, the whole win for me is basically to share, not necessarily hero, but share the journey of the transformation, or almost turn it into a mini case study, right? So you could take a whole little testimonial screenshot and be like, yeah, it was great. I had a great time, working with XYZ, company. When they came to me, they were struggling filling an ABC role, and, we did boom, boom, boom. And within 2 weeks, we filled the position, and they were an awesome client to work with. And then boom, they got the testimonial below.
Yeah.
Right? So tell a story, and that takes everything off of me. It's like, I'm telling the story about the client, right? For me in coaching, it's like, I'll be like, hey, super pumped. I love working with somebody like this, and the results they're seeing are this. When they step into it, they're action takers, so it's kind of heroing, their journey and making a little bit more about them, but they're seeing that the result is attached to you.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's creating connection. It's a way of telling a story that builds the testimonial in that,
right.
that people like get hooked into. It's definitely a marketing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And a really brilliant one that is like solid at creating connection. And then
Mm-hmm.
also having a way of like, oh wait, it like creates that connection piece of like, oh wait, I have that problem. And like, this is obviously somebody who knows how to solve it.
Yep.
You mentioned something that I really want to like highlight on, because I know we've got to wrap. You mentioned the importance of working with a coach. And like, I have to say, in terms of going into recruiting, like coaching is pivotal. Having a mentor is pivotal.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you are a coach. So, and I also know that you have a free gift for our audience. So I'd love to just have you share what that free gift is and where people can find you, because I cannot emphasize how important it is to have somebody in your corner, somebody cheering you forward, somebody that like when you're coming up against your biggest blocks, like maybe self-consciousness around sharing a testimonial is one.
Yep.
Like, how do we overcome that? For me, it's been my coach, 100%.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is, so many people that haven't been through coaching, I think there's people that are naturally more inclined for just business development. And then there's others that aren't. I'm not saying it's good or bad.
Right.
But I think some people are just more wired to do that. For me, it's always like, I want to see how I can get here faster. I'm willing to pay you to get me there. Right. And then once I'm in a program like that, yeah, it's the accountability is so much more than, sometimes it's knowledge, and that's great. But sometimes it's the push that we need, right? Most of us, I think, have about the 90% that we need to do. We just need that extra 10 to get us over the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when somebody comes through my program, it's not like I'm looking for them to come through my program and get value with every single piece. I know that they're going to get a nugget along the way that's really going to light them up. And I think that's really, if everybody approached things that way, then we're always moving forward faster. So, what I have to offer, for the listeners is, my recruiting agency roadmap. And it's basically a couple shifts that people can make to, adopt a more modern online presence so they can attract, clients and candidates on autopilot. So that can be downloaded at donniegupton.com/3pivots.
I'm going to put a button. We're good. I'm putting a button below this.
Beautiful.
You guys grab that.
Yep.
Because like what we're actually talking about right now is navigating today's economy.
Yep.
A lot of us as a result are working remote. And recruiting is naturally kind of a remote industry anyway. But like this is super, super important. So you guys just scroll below, click the button. It'll take you straight to Donnie's free gift. And Donnie,
Excellent.
Yeah, I'd love for them to like if you're there, I'd love for them to know where else they can go. Is it just donniegupton.com? Like, what is it?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're going to find, if you're on LinkedIn, which I think
you should be, if you're in recruiting. If you are not on LinkedIn, I do not know how you're doing this.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, Donnie Gupton. And we've also got a free Facebook community. It's staffing recruiters and executive search professionals. It's Facebook, just look up the Relevant Recruiter group, and we've got a free group there for people to come. It's really cool. I do live trainings every single Wednesday on there. It's 100% free, and it's just a place for me to share value. And then there's interaction with other, professionals in there that are kind of on this path for more of a modern approach, right? Mm-hmm. So good dialogue. Great to be surrounded by other peers in the community, and then the live trainings. I'm just trying to add value every single week. To help people. And this was something I really, I created last year, really went all in kind of in the beginning of COVID, honestly, because just my way of helping was like, well, shoot, I'm just going to show up more.
Right.
And then I created that cadence, and actually it's been, the business that I've received from that type of a thing is kind of just showing, like paying it forward with content and adding value. It's amazing what it can do, but it's, I think the last thing is you got to really go all in. You can't put a toe in the water and hope for something, and it doesn't even matter about online marketing lead generation. I think that's just anything that you're going after. Like 100% commitment is necessary to see the results that you want.
Absolutely. Would you say, Donnie, that's the biggest takeaway you want to leave our audience with, that it's all about 100% commitment, going all in? Or is there any other major nugget you're like, got to leave them with this?
Yeah, do the work.
I know, I love your shirt. I'm like, yes.
No, yeah, I think that's really it. It is. I mean, those things kind of go hand in hand, I think. I mean, the purpose of like my coaching program, for example, I think any program is to collapse some time, right? To help you get there faster. But the bottom line is I'm not the magic pill. You are. The person that I work with is the magic pill. My job as a coach is to help pull that out. And that only happens when you're 100% committed, all in, and you do the work. So yeah, we'll leave it with that one.
Yeah. And one more thing I just want to point out that I absolutely love is you practice what you preach. Like, you are doing that. You are putting that time, energy, and effort in. It's just so evident. And, there are other people where, they'll say to do something and they haven't done it in 5 years, and you're showing up and doing it every week. So that's just awesome, man. I'm proud of you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate that.